Milton is ferocious and just hours away from making landfall in Florida. See new potential storm surge, wind speed and rain totals, and an updated path of the storm.
Plus, what we're learning about 11 members of one North Carolina family killed from Helene. Then, the needs dire and grim in the western part of our state.
I got an updated list of what was needed, and body bags was on it.
Only on WRAL at 7, we take you on board one of the more than 100 daily relief flights.
Well, we start here. Hurricane Milton back to a Category 5 tonight as we take this live look. It's an intimidating storm on the radar. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dan Haggerty.
And I'm Ashley Rowe. Milton could make landfall by tomorrow night. The National Hurricane Center is warning of up to 15 feet of storm surge. 11 counties are under mandatory evacuation orders, home to nearly 6 million people. The Tampa Bay area hasn't been directly hit by a major hurricane since 1921.
Milton has already pummeled Mexico. Video here from flooding in the Yucatan Peninsula. The storm was a Category 4 when it hit there. Homes, roads, boats submerged by floodwater.
And here's how Florida is preparing. Look at all the cots and temporary shelters at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg. That's the home of the Tampa Bay Rays. Governor Ron DeSantis says they have set up a 10,000-person base camp.
Wow. Meteorologist Mike Mays in the WRAL Severe Weather Center with where the storm is now and what we can expect, Mike.
It is just north of the Yucatan Peninsula, and it is taking on that familiar look that it did yesterday, that buzzsaw look, the well-defined eye. Remember yesterday, the winds are up to 180 miles per hour. We're going to watch through the evening and see if it attains that strength once again. But as of 5 o'clock, winds were at 165. The barometric pressure is going down. In fact, the hurricane hunters went in there, found a new central pressure down to 905 millibars after the 5 o'clock advisory came out. So again, I'm wondering if by 8 o'clock we could be looking at a stronger storm. Here is the track of the storm. The potential is for a Category 3 hurricane, 2 a.m. Thursday morning, 125 mile per hour winds. But notice how it gradually loses intensity. It should encounter some wind shear and some drier air. That's why the anticipation is for weakening. Crosses over the peninsula by Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock, top winds at 85, and moving farther out into the Atlantic. It is going to have a massive impact on central Florida. We're talking about storm surge 10 to 15 feet around the Tampa area, north and south of there perhaps as well. Rainfall totals that could exceed 15 inches. I'll have more about all that coming up in less than 15 minutes.
I'm Aaron Thomas in the WRAL Live Center giving you a look at how Floridians are preparing for this massive storm. You can see live look here at the Naples Pier with people enjoying the calm before the storm. You have a look over here. This is I-75 in Alachua County. You can see all the cars that are on the road. Keep in mind, this is the northeastern part of the state with a lot of people trying to get out of Florida ahead of Milton's approach. You have several cities and counties that actually have enforced mandatory evacuations. As night falls, you will have some places that will have vehicle curfews in place as well.
That road, that interstate's been packed for days now. People fleeing that area, people along Florida's Gulf Coast are leaving their homes today, of course, because of Hurricane Milton's expected landfall. Some of those people have been landing at RDU. It's where we find WRAL's Julian Grace tonight.
There are less flights coming in from Florida and landing here at RDU. That's because Tampa's airport suspended its operations, and that resulted in 3 flights being canceled here at the airport today. Also, Orlando is expected to close their airport on Wednesday. And we caught up with a couple of passengers inside the airport today. This is what else we found out. This is being called the biggest evacuation the state of Florida has seen since Hurricane Irma struck in 2017. 9 counties in Florida, including some inland ones, are under a mandatory evacuation order. This evening, we caught up with one passenger who left her apartment back in Tampa.
This hurricane kind of made us think a little differently. We were told not to stay. Even our governor, she said that if you stayed, you'd probably die. And so that was the scariest thing, I would say. But a lot of people, they're not able to escape. There are no trains available, no hotels, cars aren't working. So many things are just kind of just out of the blue, I'd say.
Currently, 51 counties in the state of Florida are under a state of emergency. That said, Orlando and Miami are still expecting flights to land here later this evening at RDU as people try to find a way around the hurricane. Reporting in the Triangle, Julian Grace, WRAL News.
Well, we now know Hurricane Helene has caused at least 121 deaths in North Carolina alone. Tonight, we've learned 11 members of the same family are among the dead. They are all from this small part of Buncombe County. It's called Craigtown in Fairview. WRAL's Sean Gallagher joins us live there now. Sean, you're getting a look at what the storm did to the community. Walk us through that. Tell us a little bit about this family, the town affectionately known as Craigtown for a very poignant reason.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's a family that lived here for some 80 years, generations of folks that called this place home, and now 11 members of that family are dead. And a lot of them look very similar to this, some cleanup efforts going on, but still a lot of stuff that needs to be done. We took a ride with the Garin Creek Fire Department just last week, and mudslides took a massive toll on the community, making it physically unrecognizable. But this loss, it's going to make it hard for anyone to feel the same in this neighborhood ever again. There are signs up, like you said, from neighbors saying to pray for Craigtown. It's a family who's been here again for at least 80 years. And these people weren't passive members of their community by any means. They were active members, pillars of this community, heavily involved. And in the last hour, I just spoke to a close family friend about what this loss means to him. He's still coming to grips with what this all means, but not just for him personally, but really the entire community.
It's a complete loss for the community. There's just no words to describe it. The void that will be left, and all the light they brought to the community and all their family and friends, that just we're gonna have to do without and move on after that. So it's hard to put into words, really.
Yeah, so Sam tells me that there are more members of the Craig family who do live in this community. He says he feels the Craig's legacy as a pillar of this community will continue to live on, but that should not discount how devastating this loss is, not just for the Craig family, the extended family, but all of this section of North Carolina. Sean Gallagher, WRAL News, near Craigtown.
And back in the WRAL Live Center, we have breaking details as it relates to that fatal crash that we've been covering throughout the evening in Sampson County. Highway Patrol, they've just released the name of the person whose car was found in the body of water off of US 421, naming her as Donna Jean Pierce, 77-year-old of Clinton. We actually have seen video from the moment that this recovery effort took place. So this is off of US 421 in Clinton. We're told that Pierce ran off the road down an embankment and her car, this Ford SUV, veered off into the road. Sadly, her body was still in the car when divers went inside of the water to retrieve the vehicle. So we've also had some witnesses that kind of talked about what went on at that time. Speed does not appear to be a factor, and we're still working to learn exactly what led Miss Pierce to drive off the road. We have Willie Danley, who will have a live report on this investigation coming up on Fox 50 at 10.
That's a sad update. Okay, thank you, Aaron. Well, the aviation community has stepped up in a big way to help with Helene relief and recovery.
Tonight, WRAL goes up in the air on a mission with a group out of Wayne County. We're going to take you along for one of these rides and explain just how busy the skies have been over the North Carolina mountains.
Hundreds of miles separate eastern North Carolina and the North Carolina mountains. People in the east and on the coast know what it's like to live through a hurricane.
They do. Usually they're the ones receiving the disaster relief, but now they're the ones who are providing it. WRAL's Heidi Kirk traveled from Wayne County to Ashe County with a group that's stepping up to help.
A hangar full of supplies in Ashe County, delivered to the airport by pilots across the country. It's where we met Brad Thayer, a volunteer helping to unload.
The needs board is updated every day, and it's all communicated throughout the county. and all the drop zones. Today's need list is right here.
Supplies like blankets, heaters, and laundry detergent, the most needed right now. It's something Christina Sargent is keeping up with. We flew west with Sargent's company, Fairwinds Aviation, a flight training center in Wayne County.
I've never been in this situation before, and I'm very proud to be a part of the community that was able to do this.
Sargent's taken 2 to 3 trips a day for over a week now. In total, the group has moved about 90,000 pounds of supplies into the region.
Now, the airport here in Ashe County is one of several locations where they're doing these supply drop-offs. Now, within just minutes, this entire aircraft was unloaded. The supplies were taken to a facility and then distributed to the hardest hit communities.
Pilot Bob Engel says the trips aren't easy, flying through mountainous terrain and navigating tough weather. But there's a reason they've stepped up from the east to help out.
Eastern North Carolina in particular gets hurricanes, and they usually are on the receiving end of aid and pouring out. And I think because of that, this county and Eastern North Carolina, when they saw their western brethren in trouble, they're like, we need to do something.
While they're used to navigating the air, the emotional toll isn't easy.
The hardest moment for me was we went to Gatlinburg, and while I was in Gatlinburg, I got an updated list of what was needed, and body bags was on it.
But they won't stop. Even as the roads open and air travel is no longer the most effective way to bring supplies, they'll transition and keep heeding the call for help. Heidi Kirk, WRAL News, Wayne County.
Her heart must have just sunk when she saw that body bags.
I know.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Important work that they are doing. And hey, we want to get you a better idea of just how huge the relief response has been from the aviation community. These are pictures from the group Hurricane Helene Airlift Relief. It's one of many posting and organizing online. They worked with United Carolina Cavalry and Carolina Aviators Network. All are volunteers. They flew items from Statesville to Western North Carolina.
Operation Airdrop. They have 3,000 pilots in this group. Some came from as far away as Oregon to help out. They delivered 1.2 million pounds of relief, and they performed more than 400 rescues. They operated everything from an airport in Concord. They had contacts at drop locations in Western North Carolina waiting to receive and distribute. These are very kind of complicated operations they can be. Operation Airdrop has done this work for years, though. But their executive director told us communication was really a big hurdle this time around.
Well, he told us as well that Senator Ted Budd helped them get hundreds of Starlinks so that they could stay in touch and let people living there do the same.
In today's day and age, I was so surprised to see that beyond just food and water, that simple contact was a absolute need for these people, and it made such a difference in their lives. We were able to drop off another several hundred in different isolated communities to let them continue reaching out for help and communicating with the outside world.
It's been one of the biggest eye-openers of this whole thing, don't you think? People have been doing anything they could to get help. Clark told us people were spray painting X's on the ground to get the attention of pilots.
Imagine being that desperate. Some of you might remember this video here of a man using a mirror to draw attention to himself. This was retired NASCAR driver Greg Biffle, who was flying, who was the one who saw him and helped out. Biffle was among the pilots flying for Operation Airdrop. Just one of the many rescues and reunions that these people helped to facilitate. Clark shared the story of another pilot who rescued a couple and their baby.
He was doing a helicopter mission, and he landed in this little field, tiny little field, and found a mother and her 4-month-old daughter, and were able to evacuate them to a safe location down the mountain. So we've got just a ton of stories like that we are just so thankful to be able to help out with and hear.
And that's what keeps them going, right? Because, of course, this is dangerous work, flying into a disaster area with little communication. Pilots flying rescue missions often aren't sure where they will land. In fact, there have been at least 30 close calls in the region since the relief effort began.
It's easy to see why. The FAA reported air traffic in western North Carolina has increased big time, about 300%. I want to step away and take you to the big monitor. Come with me for a moment. So this gives us kind of an idea of the increase that we have seen on some of these graphs. So FlightAware tracks this kind of stuff, and this graph shows the number of flights going in and out of the Asheville Regional Airport every day over the last couple of years. I want you to focus on the blue line that we have circled there. That is the spike right there. In the last week, the Asheville Airport averaged 257 flights a day. This spike is even more dramatic when you look at some of the smaller airports. Another graph, this one from Ashe County, a lot different, right? Different. This place usually gets 5, maybe 6 flights per day this time of year. In the last week, this mark at the top is 157 flights roughly a day. That's all the relief flying in, the troops, the first responders, volunteer groups, the ones that we've been telling you about here. We saw similar spikes in all those smaller areas, Avery, Rutherford, Macon, Jackson counties, as well as Morganton. You can see those giant spikes on all of their air traffic. They saw anywhere from 100 to 2,000% increases in the amount of air traffic there.
Just incredible. A lot of these groups are now handing things off to the troops. Many roads are back open and the military can just keep things rolling. The folks with Operation Airdrop and others are volunteers. Of course, they have to go back to work. But for the last week and a half of flying supplies to people who desperately need it, they have our thanks.
It is really, really, really remarkable work.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of that work may be needed in other parts of the country very soon because of what we are seeing in the Gulf, Mike.
Yeah, we're waiting for another natural disaster to unfold. We see it coming with Milton to the southwest of Florida. Florida has already seen an abundant amount of rain over the past few days. There was a little tropical disturbance that moved on by. Still, as they're preparing for landfall later on tomorrow night after midnight, still rain coming down as they're getting ready. Tomorrow afternoon and evening, we're going to notice the circulation showing up on the radar. This is actually the radar view out of Tampa, and we'll hope that it remains intact while the hurricane is making landfall. And the model suggests that somewhere around here that there would be landfall after midnight tomorrow night. So join us throughout the day tomorrow and tomorrow night. We'll monitor how the storm approaches Florida. Hurricane warnings in effect, both the west coast and the east coast, central Florida, Orlando, Ocala, close to Gainesville, seeing hurricane warnings. And then farther south, hurricane warnings are in effect for some of the southwestern coast. For us, it's our southeast coast, that coastal waters, that has a tropical storm watch for wind gusts possible up to 50 miles per hour. Yesterday, it looked like Thursday would have an overcast in the area. Now, that doesn't look to be the case. Down east toward the coast, there should be a lot of cloud cover from Milton, but no rain is expected. That stays offshore as well. And still looking at a monster storm surge of 10 to 15 feet. And where the storm makes landfall will dictate whether or not that water will be forced up into Tampa Bay. If it tends to make landfall farther south, that heavier storm surge would be focused farther south. So we'll watch to see how all this unfolds tomorrow night. There is the forecast track from where the storm is now, how it makes landfall, moves across the peninsula, and then makes an exit over toward perhaps Melbourne and your Port Canaveral, Cape Canaveral area, and then heads deeper into the Atlantic. That's 11 o'clock Friday night where the storm is expected to be. And rainfall totals on average about 6 to 10 on a widespread basis, up to 18 inches on an isolated basis. But there is extreme flooding expected here, and that's the same kind of flooding that was seen up in our mountains. And it is likely to be a huge mess in Florida tomorrow night and for Thursday and into Friday. So here's high resolution futurecast. This is the model that we used to track Ian and Debbie. Both did a very good job at where the storm made landfall and how it moved through central North Carolina. So as we go through the day tomorrow and 5 o'clock, there's where the center is. There's Bradenton, Port Charlotte, Cape Coral, Tampa, Bradenton, or I should say Clearwater and St. Pete. Storm heading in that direction by midnight tomorrow night, closing in on Bradenton and Sarasota and Port Charlotte. This model would suggest it would pass south of the bay, which would be a better case scenario, but it would be more detrimental to areas to the south. And then it continues to move across the peninsula. There's 3 a.m., 6 a.m. Thursday, and then it continues to cross the state and then exits during the afternoon on Thursday. For us, quiet weather. We have high pressure that's built in. We'll keep the storm away from North Carolina. 76 tomorrow, 71 on Thursday. Thursday, 70 on Friday. Those morning lows in the 40s and 50s. The warmest on Sunday, 82. There's another front on Monday. Small chance of rain, 73. And once that front passes, we're back in the 60s. And it looks like the start of the state fair will have some cool weather as well. That'll be good news.
That will be. We'll take some good news. Thank you, Mike.
One last thing to talk about. Luke Combs and Eric Church grew up in the North Carolina mountains. Now they're hosting a benefit concert to help their neighbors. We'll hear from them in about 2 minutes.
One last thing for you tonight. North Carolina natives Eric Church and Luke Combs will headline a benefit concert for Hurricane Helene victims.
Both artists have deep ties to the North Carolina mountains. Combs said he reached out to Church right away to get something organized. On October 26th, Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte will host Concert for Carolina. The goal is to raise as much money for the area as possible.
We live half the year in the mountains of Western North Carolina in the Banner Oak area. So the community there, our neighbors, have just been, our friends have, it's been decimated.
Thankfully, all my friends and family are safe and accounted for. Unfortunately, that is not the case for a lot of folks right now. And I think that's why we're at the heart of why we're doing this show.
A lot of people love the mountains, and they got some famous friends as well. Hopefully they can raise some big money. Tickets for that concert go on sale this Thursday at 10 a.m.
Thank you for making WRAL your choice for local news. Our next newscast is at 10 on Fox 50 and 11 on WRAL.
Have a great night.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air channel 34 and Spectrum channel 1257.